Welcome to Katie's Classroom, where I explore things, learn things, and come here and teach you all that I know. I'm your host, Katie Leeds, and today I am talking about an experience I had. So, at the Owl's Inn, I offer a lot of experiences and I talk about things and experiences because that's ultimately what we're here to do in life. We're taking it far too seriously, these experiences. And I typically help people incorporate enjoy their experience more, find a way to enter a new experience in a fun and playful and very practical way, or exit their corporate experience. And part of how I do that is using Gene Keys and human design. And today I'm going to talk about an experience I had with Gene Keys, specifically catching the wave, which is where I was at during the Star Pearl. And the community group that they hosted, I was able to attend my first one. And the woman that was in my group as a guide, both of us were on Catching the Wave. And it was such a profound experience. I thought, this is a good episode for Katie's Classroom. And so here we are. And if you are new here and not familiar with Gene Keys, the Gene Keys is based on three pieces of information. We pull a birth chart, so your birthplace, time, and date, year, all of that. And from there, we have this sequence. And the Star Pearl, you take a harmony assessment test to see where are you, and then where are you most harmonic, and where are you least harmonic. And then you focus on this area that could bring more harmony. And so it's a triangle. There's three spheres. And if you want to learn more, there's a link. Even if you don't know anything, you're still going to enjoy this conversation. So feel free to stick around. I'll use layman terms for you because it's not really about understanding the system so much as it was just talking about catching the wave. And in life, we are all sitting here as surfers waiting for the perfect wave to come in. And oftentimes we feel like if we're sitting here not trying every single wave that comes our way, that we aren't working hard enough. There is an actress that would use this story of like catching the bus. If you run as hard as you can and you still miss the bus, that wasn't your bus. But you got to run and try to get to that bus. And that's not what we're here for. We're not here to chase. That's a very yang piece of advice. And so receiving looks like I'm going to put an extra pep in my step on the way to that bus I'd like to make. And if the universe wants me on it, there will be a car that pulls out in front of it, a red light that occurs. Something will happen to intervene. That is what it looks like to ride the wave of life and have fun. It sounded willy nilly to some, perhaps Pollyanna. These are phrases I've heard from men over the years. And yet, I have very successful businesses I've built and sold to show otherwise. It is not just a lifestyle, it's a strategy for living. And so catching the wave, it was interesting to just share, to hear something that she shared that really sparked for me what catching the wave was like. And so in the system, there's these three spheres, and two of mine happen to be the same. My pearl, how I prosper, is the shadow of inertia, as is my creativity. And the culture, which is really my position in society. What the heck am I here to do to serve society? Um, that one can be force. And when I'm not experiencing inertia and force, I am demonstrating strength, which is easy as right. And if you are a client that's been working with me lately, you've heard this phrase a lot. And when I am easy as right, I'm determined. I'm invincible. I'm majesty itself. These are the keys that unlock the genes, which is why it's called gene keys. These are the genes that are found in these areas of my chart. And this person shared with me how it shows up in her life via people. And of course, that clicks for me. I'm a coach. I see a lot of clients. I'm very much like they're strangers that come in and then there's strangers that go out. I'm not out there fishing for them. They're finding me. I'm just generating them towards me with an algorithm that I didn't design and a photo and bio. And from the last client that just joined my roster, what I've learned is the algorithm has me buried very deeply. And when she ended our session, she said, "You have no idea how many coaches I had to go through an algorithm to find you," which made sense why I haven't had any come through that particular algorithm in a while. And that's how I knew that she was meant to find me. The amount of synchronicities in that meeting were quite profound. And catching the wave, I didn't quite think about, oh, even if I'm not picking up the work, if I'm catching the wave, then I should expect to see people that are in these areas of needing easy is right. So I can be a mirror and coach myself. And on accident, it's never on purpose. And also some clients that are experiencing inertia. Mm. It hadn't quite hit me that I was experiencing that on the client side. I was more consumed with looking at my personal side and what I was building over here to think about what I've already built and how that's also been impacted from catching the wave. It makes sense because the question that we were offered is anything dissipated? I don't think that was their word, that's mine, but there have been um, plans that have dissipated, contracts that are dissipating. It's a year nine, it's a snake, we're shedding. And it was so interesting to hear this person share. We have different genes in these areas, but we're still working on catching it. And yet there was some overlap. And um, death came up in our conversation. And that's the one wave everyone tries not to catch. And it's the one wave that I have always been just okay with waiting to catch me, whenever that is. It was something that was really a gift, I think, that my mom gave me in the womb. We talk so much about what's the shadow that we were given in the womb, and 13.5 is that, and 42.5 would be in the Mars area, and 13.5 would be the gene key for that wound in the womb, so to speak. And that is discord. And the word cord made sense to me considering I was ripped from my mother's belly in a C-section in the 80s, and which means she was asleep. And also, she lost her mother the week she found out she was pregnant with me, which is how I got my name. And I like that she skipped the karma piece, so I just got the nickname, which was Katie, not the full name, which was Catherine. Shout out to her, to grandma on the other side that I haven't had a chance to meet in person, if you will. And my mom really left me that positive legacy. So often we talk about the negative conditioning and how to decondition from the parents and all the things. And I've got a list of that too. That's lovely. But part of that completing the childhood is coming full circle of the embracing. And I can imagine the guilt that my mom might have had in telling her mom she'd come over the next day and and then her mom went to sleep and didn't wake up. And I felt like that wasn't something I was meant to carry. Perhaps because I've carried it with my mom. And finding a letter after she passed when I was 2 was a reminder that energetically I was carrying it with her my whole childhood. My SQ 61.4 would have been drug into the psychosis of the grief of someone being gone that was right there the whole time while my mom wrote that letter, and yet not able to speak. And also just a recognition of a lot of the inspiration I had as a kid. Um, Songs I invented that were clearly from my dad, which was he's the hero. He's a 5'2". If you know anything about what they talk about with the reluctant hero, that would be him. Um, so catching the wave was so interesting because we didn't, we're both working on catching the wave, but what stood out for me was just this, hey, I actually paused this. I went back to a wave I was meant to catch when a praying mantis showed up, and I didn't know that was part of the dream arc, that I had thought about the dream arc, and then someone told me about Star Pearl, and it really just felt like, well, I should probably sign up for this. And the person that told me about that dissipated from my life after I signed for the Star Pearl in a beautiful way on my birthday. And um, it was the right altered course. It made sense. Like, that's why this person needed to be in my life as I reflect on like what that catching the wave lens might say about it. Theater of the Senses was the first one that I pulled. It answered my questions and got, um, and my experience in the Star Pearl journey. And I ended up back to the dream arc because I had a dream about a bluebird that flew into my house, and then I shoot it right out, and then I was immediately sad when it left. It's funny, I didn't want it in the house because who wants a bird in their house, and then I wanted it back because I missed its energy. And then I woke up and decided, well, the bluebird represents my attractor line, the 31.3, and I signed up for the dream arc the next day. And so I kind of set aside the catching of the wave, and then as synchronicity has it, 9.6 pearl, 6 line pearl, synchronicity and timing, all of that resonates so wholeheartedly for my life. The fates would have it, I happened to pick up the pearl again and listen to one of the pathways because I hadn't fully decided to move on from Theater of the Senses. And then I got an email today that in 2 hours we're having a community event, and I didn't have anything on my schedule because that is dissipating. And so I went and caught a wave with a woman who was wearing a pink sweater that I'm pretty sure I have in my closet. I, of course, have my pink sweater on. And if you know the brand here at Owl, you know it's kind of our thing. It's how people can find me. And it turns out, synchronistically, from a psychology standpoint, it makes people less aggressive. And I'm going to need that from you if you want me to tell you the truth in my professional truth teller, executive coaching style that everybody knows and loves. Something we both have in our Star Pearl, but in different places. Mine is in my stability, 28.1, and hers was in her creativity. The 28 is about death, and it's about embracing the dark side. Hello, darkness, my old friend. And I had just sat in the queue an article I wrote on LinkedIn about how my greatest gift to society is, to humanity actually, is my silence. Open throat. Gate 31 is all I got there, that attractor line, that 31.3. And we really know how to, again, totality, all of it, all at once. It's an embrace. And we mentioned like loving ourselves, and it was just so fun to like mirror somebody. Like we clearly are in the same wave. So it was fun to see an experiment that of Gene Keys and to see that synchronistically, because Gene Keys has always been my synchronicity. It aligned. And I couldn't remember the words at the time, but I found my note that I had written, which perhaps I misplaced before. Here we go. Maybe not. I might have misplaced it again. And it was after listening to one of the pathways that's in my Catching the Wave. And here's what it says. Nope, still can't find it. Man, really botching this one today. I love how the universe is like, no, this was information that was for you and you weren't meant to share it with the world today. Um, it was on, I had written a note about, what I loved about my shadow. We don't really do that enough. And we often are looking at how do I avoid having this shadow in the first place? Not how do I embrace the shadow? How does it show up in my life in a positive way? And what I love about arrogance, I found it, which is in that attractor line, the shadow of leadership is arrogance. What I love about arrogance, it allows you to be a leader ahead of your time, despite what society says. What I embrace about the shadow of force, my culture, it can break through a darkness and shine a light of awareness on a soul's desire, or perhaps what to finally let go of. Avoidance is part of the plan. Procrastination is also part of the plan. Am I determined or am I in inertia? Am I just determined to stay in inertia? There is no right or wrong. This is really what Gene Keys has taught me as I sat and caught the wave, waited to catch the wave. There's only resonance which is what he's talking about in this whole harmonics, anyways. And so, one of the things that stood out to me that Richard spoke about was, do you know any surfers? I don't know if he said it that way, those are my words, but my friend's husband surfs, and he has talked about growing up in Pacifica and surfing, and how there's an etiquette, and then this is how you act when you're in the surf. And since all the tech people have moved there, there's a bunch of idiots in the water that are in the way. And sometimes you want to catch a wave, but then you get on the wave and you crash into one of these guys, or you can't get on the wave that you should be because they're in your lane. I don't know how surfing works, but it's a good reminder when you're catching the wave is to look out for the idiots, which is something I love about the 34.2, which is my culture. Quote, you are an energetic injection. Learn not to use this gift on ungrateful dummies. Be alert and develop discrimination. I think I got that from the I Ching of Ra. I can't fully remember, but it sounds about right for his brand. And it's a good reminder from a cultural perspective. Partnership and catching a wave, patience comes to mind. And I had a client that summed up our coaching together this week or last week by saying, you Mr. Miyagi'd me. If you aren't familiar with Karate Kid, this isn't going to make sense. But the Karate Kid hires this guy to teach him karate, and he ends up washing his car instead. And this client, I pulled her chart and her gene keys, and I ended up doing a lot of self-awareness. She's a 6'2", and a lot of learning about her emotional wave as a 1222 manifesting generator. And I love that we got to share the same name. So she got to teach me this lesson about myself. Two Katies, of course we can change the world together as a 6'2" and a 5'1". That is the beauty of a heretic. We Mr. Miyagi people. I've never once been hired to read a birth chart. That's not true. I've on my private practice. In corporate, I've never once been hired to read a birth chart or teach someone to breathe. But Mr. Miyagi is going to, Mrs. Miyagi in this case, is going to Miyagi her way into what the people need. And as I see those waves start to get smaller and smaller in the current contract, I know it's because there's more to be had. And as my gene keys says, it would be a travesty. I don't think that's quite the word. If I ended up in some backwater somewhere, and I did try to buy a house in Sweetwater just prior to the Star Pearl coming out a couple months before, and the universe was like, listen, absolutely not. We didn't pass inspection on that house. And the universe is just always taking care of me. Why would I believe it wouldn't continue to do so? That is an energetic injection that many people could use. And I am excited to finalize the last part of Catching the Wave, which was 2 days ago, really researching what it meant to be a gene key guide, and do I align with the ethics, and can I keep hereticking because I have so much respect for and integrity for my own work, which is why I left the ICF and didn't renew, is because I didn't want to uphold those ethics per se. Not that I can't, so if you want to hire me and like me to uphold them, I'm happy to do so. But to align myself with an organization is important to me. And I then meet a Gene Key guide and the synchronistic meeting, and it feels like something that I will stand up and potentially surf my way through. There's also the Sage retreat coming up. I can't do both, probably. I don't know. What I loved about the Gene Keys and why I initially was so drawn to this is, quote, there will come a time when you are put down this work and you will simply go live your life. And that's how we know that we're not on a treadmill or being indoctrinated. At some point, you got to go out and live it. And so I do that a lot in between these. I just also love to learn. The more language I have, the more I can offer others. And it is better language than the most of the language that's out there. It always resonates. It unlocks a key, right? It's what it's supposed to do. It's a key that unlocks things. And when I look at my life's work and my evolution, part of my evolution is to complete my childhood so I can help others complete theirs. Gene Key 18.5. The gift of integrity is about demanding and maintaining a high standard in everything you do. As a fully healed adult, your purpose is to help others complete their childhoods so they can finally enjoy their lives and pass on their integrity to their children. Your energy has to be in an integrity, otherwise, it's performative. A new way of mental healing. It's interesting that that's also part of this gene key. It's 18.5. It's the therapist and the I Ching. And there are codon rings I'm learning more about as I go. But something I know to be true about the Owl's Inn, which is the place that I host these experiences at, is Dan and I together have the codon ring, the gene keys of the three phases of the childhood: physical, emotional, and mental, governed by the 46, 48, and 18. Dan has the 46 and 48. I have the 18. And the 57 gene key lays down the even deeper seeds of these three phases through the three trimesters during gestation, which I also have. It's my driving force. This codon ring is of huge importance at the developmental level, as it governs the very infrastructure of our physical, emotional, and mental health. These four in particular will bring a great revolution in the way in which we approach the whole notion of child education. My first career was a teacher. I was really good at child education. Still am. Everyone kept telling me to go back and take care of the kids and get out of the whole adult thing before I was successful. And in this day and age, it felt easier to fix the parents. Fix is not the right word, but when a parent completes their shit, they stop putting their shit on kids. And that was something that was always an integrity for me as a high school teacher. I had the serenity prayer on my wall. So I went and asked for that. And I always asked for forgiveness and admitted my mistakes to kids, because that's what leadership looks like. I'm curious to see what waves I'll keep catching. And I'm just grateful for the experience I had today. I missed the part with the rules, and we broke them and bent them a little bit with just the two of us, two open throats. We don't need to practice honoring listening to people. We just listen to people. um, It doesn't surprise me that Richard was also catching the wave and his second triangle. I imagine that someday we'll be catching a wave together. Probably not in the surf, and perhaps not even over tea in person. I don't know. But I do see a guide, me in the future, and an opportunity to help support a developing business and bring some of that perfection that the 17 and 18 love to bring. Um, if you haven't experienced anything with Gene Keys, stay tuned. And if you'd like to have a reading, just intuitive with me, for Human Design and Gene Keys, it's all on my website. I will drop a link in this post for you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Katie's Classroom. Appreciate you listening to me speak out loud, whatever thoughts show up. That is the way of the open throat. Until next time, have fun. Stop taking life so seriously.